Hi everyone and welcome back to the channel. We've got Dan Bennett on this week. He's into the top 100k at long last. We're looking ahead to game week 33 ahead of double game week 34. We've also got a cool section where we're going to talk about the Man City assets that you might be tempted to bring into your squads as we look down the stretch for the remaining part of the season. So without further ado, let's get right into it. Hi everyone and welcome back to the channel. And Dan, welcome back, mate. It's been about a month or so and we can see on screen, now the graph hasn't quite caught up, but you're into the top 100k. Congratulations, mate. You said you were targeting that. So has the season been going in the way that you would have been hoping for?
Thanks, Tom. Yes, chip season arrived and it's usually the time when more engaged managers make gains, and it's proven to be the case. So I'm fairly happy. I'd like to push on to the top 50k.
Yeah, well, that's interesting, actually. I was going to ask you what your remaining targets were. Obviously, we've still got a bunch of double game weeks still to play with. Notice that your chips have now been deployed, but that doesn't necessarily cause any alarm for you with how you set your team up, as we'll come on to, guys. And I should just say as well, we've got timestamps on the video, guys. So if you do want to hop around, then do feel free to do that. So top 50k then, Dan, is that the new target for you for the remainder of the campaign?
Yeah, I was meant to check how many points I'm behind, but I think it's achievable. I think anything higher than that might be a push, but we'll see. I've seen a few people on FPL Twitter make a lot of gains recently.
Yeah.
I've never finished outside the top 40k, I think it is. So
is that right?
I'd really like to get there.
Yeah, well, we're all rooting for you, mate. And the way that you've planned out the season, it's actually been cool to follow you through this series over the course of the season, how calm you've been against some pretty, some rotten luck on some 50-50s and stuff. And to see you, ascend into the top 100k now is a testament to that patience. So look, we're all rooting for you, mate. I'm sure you can manage it, and hopefully we'll get you back on before the end of the season to see if that transpires. Anyway, look, let's look back, Dan, at how your game week 32 team has played out. You played your free hit, so I'm really interested to see what thought processes went into selecting this little team. Alrighty, so this is the Game Week 32 team that Dan assembled on his free hit. And look, Dan, I mean, we can talk about the Liverpool contingent in a minute, but my eyes straight away are going to go to Castagna at the back. Now, you've talked in the past about not really targeting differentials. Goodness me, that's a differential. How did you come to select him? And what a lovely 10-pointer he's picked you up.
Yeah, it was brilliant. People often ask me about special players in the past that have done well for me. I struggle to pick them because I usually have the template team most of the time. So yeah, free hit was a chance to pick one or two differentials. And Castagna sure delivered. He was the difference between getting into the top 100k basically.
Yeah.
I guess it was just the lack of defensive options. I could have gone for another Liverpool defender alongside Trent, or an Arsenal defender. But I like their attackers more. So I know Moreno was popular, and Villa had done well, actually. I think 6 clean sheets in the last 8 or something. But it was just a punt, basically.
Nothing more than that. A good old-fashioned punt. Now, was it informed by any stats or anything from fantasyfootballfix.com, Dan, or had you just saw this Wolves fixture and just thought, do you know what, this is a chance of... Presumably you fancied a clean sheet as well as his attacking return. I believe it's his first goal potentially ever. So what was it that led you to Castagna there?
I think it was more positioning. I understood he was going to play wing back, and
fair enough, mate. Let's not belabor the point. I love the catch. It's an almost awesome one. Look, Johnston there, sitting in there with another 10-pointer in goal as well. Obviously, the Palace fixture against Everton was pretty well fancied for a clean sheet, bearing in mind, the typical way Hodgson sets his team up and how well he'd done there. So I think that pick is more straightforward. The Liverpool team, though, the contingent there, I think, there'd been a lot of talk in the week about Trent Alexander-Arnold and Salah being relatively obvious picks. You opted for Cody Gakpo there ahead of the likes of Diego Jota or Virgil van Dijk. Anybody else in the mix? Can I just ask you, Dan, what you liked about Gakpo? Obviously, a bit disappointed to be hauled off just before the hour mark there, but what led you to Gakpo ahead of, say, a Robertson or a Van Dijk, or maybe a Jota? Obviously, he had a nice haul, but what was the thought process there?
Yeah, I was tempted by Jota, but I just thought Gakpo. I quite liked some of the other forwards, and but yeah, Gakpo.
I
Yeah, he
see.
did have good stats, and
Yeah.
obviously probably a bit of recency bias. They did really well in their previous game, and I was pretty sure Klopp would go unchanged, given some of his comments about Darwin. So yeah, thought he was going to play. Extra point for a goal.
Okay. Yeah.
For midfielders as opposed to Jota.
Yeah.
And yeah, I just liked his stats, and
he's looked good as well, hasn't he? He's had a pretty encouraging start, hasn't he? In a tough season for Liverpool, it looks like a prospect that we might still be interested in, maybe down the stretch, but also into next season as well.
Yeah, I'm sure we'll be looking at Liverpool assets ahead of Gameweek 34 as well.
Yeah,
it could be Gakpo or Jota.
Yeah, interesting. Yeah, and the Arsenal boys as well. I mean, there was a lot of talk in the lead up as to whether or not Ben White would find his way in. I mean, what an assist he managed to create there. Slightly tongue-in-cheek there, but he, points are points. He managed it. You went for the Saka, Martinelli and Jesus combination there. Did you have sort of a feeling that actually they were a bit brittle at the back, or was it just the fact you think the best way into Arsenal is still to target those offensive options rather than the defensive ones?
They have been a bit brittle at the back. You're right. In recent weeks, I think they're maybe the position of the season we're in. The pressure's getting to them a little bit. But yeah, I fancied Jesus. Jesus. Yeah, it's really disappointing. Jesus, Gakpo instead of the likes of Ødegaard, Jota, or even Robertson instead. Yeah, it's a bit swingy. That some of the other elite managers were discussing it. It was it's tough
calls,
swallow,
but you know what? Castagna offsets that nicely, so I can't feel too bad for you this week, Dan. And look, you were one of the managers who decided to stick with Harry Kane. Like, obviously, Tottenham are off the back of an absolute hiding up at St James's Park. Absolute pants down performance there, as we know. But you decided to keep the faith with Harry Kane. Again, he scored his goal in that game. Really interested, though, Dan, in terms of the narrative and the talk around free hit squads. I didn't see Harry Kane finding his way into too many teams against, or too many free hit squads, I should say. What was it that led you to retain the faith with him? Is it just the fact he couldn't score against anyone, or had you seen something else? What made you stick with Kane up front there?
Do you know what? I think I don't usually go for differentials, but yeah, you're right. Not many free hit templates you saw around had Harry Kane.
Yeah.
So that was a factor, and a lot of people were doubling up on the Newcastle defence as well. And I just thought he finds a way, doesn't he?
He does.
Right, they was terrible today, Spurs, but he finds a way.
He does.
And plus, I think my free hit squad had 0 in the bank.
Right.
It's always nice when you squeeze Kane. But yeah, I guess Tony did well for those that went for him.
He did.
He would have been a nice alternative with 9 points.
Yeah, he did. I do feel whether or not the injury to Emi Martinez or who got taken off there went against people who backed, like an Alex Moreno, for example. But who knows? He took his goal well, and he's been incredible at home, hasn't he? I think the stat on Match of the Day was 12 on-off scores for Tony now in a row, which is incredible, really, and a testament to.
And he's avoided those yellow cards.
And somehow he's navigated the tightrope, hasn't he, of the yellow card.
Threshold.
Yeah, good on him, and good on any managers who stuck with him and picked up that home form and picked up his goal in blank game week 32. But look, it's been a really encouraging, a really positive free hit, Dan, I would say, for you there. 74 points, seeing you into the top 100k, so you've got to feel pretty happy with it broadly.
Yes, definitely. I was about 30k green arrow.
Yeah. You've got to feel chuffed with that. Anyway, that's in the past, Dan, so congrats on that. But we're also here to talk about Game Week 33. It's one of the few remaining game weeks where actually we don't have the prospect of double. So it's actually just a standard meat and potatoes Game Week 33 that we've got. And everyone's got to return to their pre-free hit squad. So let's take a look at what state you left the squad in before you made it look all pretty. Alrighty, so we've got some familiar faces here, haven't we, Dan? The Brighton boys are back in town. So we're actually recording this as extra time is being played in the Brighton Man United FA Cup semi-final. So we don't actually know the result of that one, guys. So it might make recording this a little bit more difficult. But look, the teams is set up in I suspect a similar way to a lot of managers watching. You've got the Brighton boys en masse there with a nice game against Forest away. But I want to talk about the bench here, Dan. So we've got Rashford, who has returned from injury, super early return for him after picking up that groin injury. You've also got Luke Shaw there. Obviously, this was done in readiness ahead of Game Week 33. Are you confident those two Man United players are going to be on the bench for Game Week 33?
Yeah, it's a good point. I didn't. Yeah, Spurs were terrible yesterday, which might change my thinking.
Mm-hmm.
But my thinking was, I think they've been rushed back.
Mm.
That's my feeling. The 90 minutes of normal time that they played today against Brighton, I don't think they've looked particularly good.
No.
And they play Tottenham on Thursday. Obviously, Game Week 33 is a midweek game week.
That's a good point.
So,
yeah.
Don't miss the deadline.
Mm-hmm.
So, yeah, I'm just wondering. I'm not confident they'll start. I guess they still need to try and secure top 4.
They do, although I guess Spurs would have been one of the nearest challengers to Newcastle, right? And it doesn't look super encouraging in that respect, does it? I know they've got other teams comparatively close, but you'd think that they look likely to finish in the top 4, don't you, with the few remaining games left?
Yeah, and the other factor is, I mean, in terms of Rashford, the other 7 attackers I'm playing, I'm quite happy with all of them.
It's a great point.
Bruno Fernandes has not been returning the points, but his underlying data is still excellent. Yeah,
it really is, and he's been ever so consistent, hasn't he, since the return from the World Cup, hasn't he? And like you say, frustrating for managers, I guess, who've owned him through that in terms of the actual points returns or lack thereof. But in terms of how he's played, we've talked about it with other elite managers. It's still super encouraging. I was just thinking there, who on earth would you leave out? I mean, I guess if you looked at the back, you've got double Chelsea defence in terms of Kepa and Ben Chilwell. Now, I've talked about this on previous shows as well in terms of prospective transfers out. Ben Chilwell, let's start with him rather than Kepa. It's sort of been a little bit in and out since Lampard's come back in. Are you confident, I guess, to start with, Dan? Are you confident he's actually a nailed starter in this Chelsea defence? Does Lampard see him as in his strongest 11?
That's a good question. Chelsea have also been terrible, haven't they?
They have, yeah.
I think you've got to. I think with Chilwell, I think is the upside I see.
Yeah.
He's such a good attacker.
Mm-hmm.
His attacking stats are good. And I know it's Brentford and Tony's been doing well. Tony and Brentford have been doing well. But yeah, I mean, I'll monitor the press conference, but I quite like the upside of Chilwell. Yeah. I mean, you know, it could. I'm hoping for one of those 10 pointers.
Yeah, big return. And I guess as well, they don't have the Champions League, right? So there was the question, I guess, over selection may have been a little bit influenced by the prospect, however thin it was, of them advancing in that competition. Obviously, that didn't play out. So, yeah, it's your advice to managers who own Chilwell to stick with him for this game week and avoid the temptation to transfer out, who's been a pretty frustrating hold, I'm sure, for you as well, and keep him at least for this game week.
I can see the temptation, especially for the likes of Trent.
Exactly.
Who's now his attacking stats. He's actually delivering those returns now. I can see the temptation, but I think for me, I'm just tempted to roll and get some extra information ahead of the double game week 34.
Interesting. Okay. Well, that does tend to be advice that you guys on the Elite Series do continually say. Gather the information before you make these decisions, and I guess it's at even more of a premium as we approach the last few game weeks as well. I'm interested as well, Dan, you haven't spoken for a while. When did you bring Jack Grealish into the team? He's obviously been in incredible form, being selected really consistently by Guardiola now. Have you been on Grealish for a long time, or is he a recent addition?
So in the double game week 29, I brought Bruno and Shaw in like everybody else, but I took an extra hit to bring Maddison in.
Right.
I really regret that because it wasn't in my plans.
Yeah.
I just thought if Leicester are gonna get out the trouble they're in, they're gonna need Maddison.
Mm-hmm.
They had some nice fixtures, but that didn't go to plan. So then I had a Maddison-shaped hole I wanted to change, and Grealish was the best option in game week 32.
I see.
And I obviously had to use a transfer
of course
ahead of the free.
Yeah, it would have made no sense to hold it, yeah. Mm-hmm.
So yeah, but it has made decisions tricky going forward. that position was going to be Salah.
Right.
So do I keep Grealish now because City do have the double game week 34? But we'll get onto that.
Yeah, we will. So as I mentioned a few moments ago, we are going to look at some attacking assets and which ones are kind of the best from a Man City perspective. Obviously, competing on three fronts, and Dan's a Man United fan, so I'm sure he's trepidation is all amongst him in terms of will they actually repeat that treble feat. We'll have to wait and see. Dan, I just want to say as well, you've got Botman there on the bench. I've just thought Everton, failed to score in the Crystal Palace game as well. You've already got Trippier there. Any temptation to shoehorn the double Newcastle defence? I know they got beaten resoundingly by Aston Villa, but I wondered whether or not, from a strategic perspective, down the stretch, in terms of trying to gain points for people chasing, I feel like sometimes a genuine strategy is to try and take more risks and back teams for clean sheets and try and double on those points where you've got opportunities. Strategically, do you ever see that as something that you would advocate for, or is it just actually select the individual players, so you'd still always say Chilwell over the prospect of a Trippier Botman double up for the Newcastle game, if you follow my line of logic?
Yeah, definitely. No, I do, and I've had double Newcastle defence for quite a while now. They haven't quite delivered for me. I know we've all got Trippier, so it's effectively just adding a Newcastle defender is it does give you that.
That's my point, really, isn't it? It's sort of redundant points, isn't it, with Trippier? Yeah.
Yeah, I'm just looking at Fantasy Football Fix projected points, and Botman is 3.7 versus Chilwell 3.1. So you might be right. Following the projected points, you might want to play Botman, but it's something I'll consider over the next couple of days.
I mean, that upside as well for Chilwell, I guess that does influence, doesn't it? Because you feel like his ceiling is presumably significantly higher than Botman, doesn't it? And although I guess you've got Kepa in there as well to benefit from a Chelsea clean sheet, as unlikely as that might be under Mr. Lampard, but we shall see. Yeah. Front line, obviously, you got a lot of money invested up there. Erling Haaland, don't need to belabour that one at all. Captaincy is going to, I'm sure, remain on him for what is a title decider, right? Even with that, you'd still back him for sure, right?
Yes, I think so. They shipped 3 to Southampton Friday night, didn't they? Arsenal. So I'm happy with Haaland captain going into that one.
Definitely, yeah. And Harry Kane we've talked about, and Ollie Watkins obviously had a disappointing return in the away match against Brentford. I mean, he did have a chance very, very late on, but what a run he's been on. And Fulham have had a super impressive season, haven't they? But aren't super tight, are they? So I guess there's no danger of him not being in the team. And look at that, he's even got the vice captaincy.
Yeah, I can see some people who are, really chasing. I can see some people going Captain Watkins.
Yeah, not something you'd sign off on.
Not for me.
No.
I think. I can only see a City win, to be honest, against Arsenal. We'll see.
Interesting.
Arsenal make that up, but because Arsenal will be the underdogs in this game, so maybe that'll take the pressure off Arsenal a little bit. Yeah,
3 draws on the spin for Arsenal now in the league. They just sort of stuttered right at this crucial moment, but it's still obviously a massive game. The title is effectively on the line there, so we'll wait with bated breath to see how that one plays out. But that's how Dan's shaping up ahead of game week 33, guys. So we've talked about this already, and what we're now going to do is ahead of game week 33 and looking ahead to the doubles as well. We've pulled together some stats on the Man City attacking assets that you might be looking to bring into your squad. Cool. So lots of numbers on screen here, guys. But effectively, what we've pulled out here is 4. We've left Haaland alone because let's go ahead and assume that Haaland is in everybody's team and probably with the armband. So we're all happy to get the points, but it doesn't actually differentiate you at all from the rest of your competitors. So pulled out some stats for some of the attacking options. There are others, but we think that these are the 4 who are probably most prevalent in people's thoughts. We've got Phil Foden, we've got Jack Grealish, Kevin De Bruyne, and Alvarez up front as well. These are the stats for game weeks 1 through 31, so not the most recent game week, but you can see there the green highlighted selections there are the quote-unquote winners, and the next 5 fixtures at the bottom there you can see Man City's run. So we've got this title decided, Dan, that we've talked about in game week 33. You're going to play assets irrespective of the difficulty there, and then look at that, 2 doubles to come, Fulham away, and then the mighty West Ham, United of European fame in a home match in game week 34. Leeds at home, Everton away, and then another double of Chelsea and Brighton as well. So great fixture run, going for the title. Haaland already in. Let's talk about what you think, Dan. Where should people be investing their money in terms of the Man City attacking assets?
So, yeah, I think we're going to have to play pep roulette with this double game week 34. I think Grealish is the man in form, and he's obviously playing. That's key to the Man City assets. They got to be on the pitch, and sometimes it's difficult to predict that. And I think what makes it difficult is Foden being back to fitness.
Yeah.
I suspect he'll take minutes off both Grealish and Mahrez.
Well, Mahrez is one we didn't include on here. If we're honest, it's just because the slide just got a bit too busy with a fifth column, guys, but he's absolutely still in the mix. So Riyad Mahrez is absolutely still someone to consider. And if we look at the projected points over on fantasyfootballfix.com, he will be a factor as well. So Grealish, I think, as you mentioned, and he's in your team and seems to be favoured, doesn't he, in terms of minutes? Would we say that with some degree of confidence at least?
Yeah, I don't think he's as explosive as Foden or Mahrez. Yeah, I've got the expected FPL points for Mahrez. I think it's 6.19, so it's higher than Foden and Grealish.
Yeah, so we should have included Mahrez, and if there was space, we would have done. But it's not us being sneaky. He is still definitely in the mix.
So yeah, I think I'm probably going to avoid Foden for now.
Yeah,
just to see how he gets back up to fitness.
Yeah.
So yeah, for me, Mahrez in the past has been a bit of a troll for me.
Sure, I think for most managers,
But yeah, he's usually, when people ask me biggest troll, it's been Mahrez a lot in the past. But as we saw yesterday, he scored a hat trick.
I know, yeah,
and
took a penalty as well, right? Ahead of
Haaland. Took a penalty with Haaland on the pitch. Yeah. It was an interesting quote. He said something like, him and Haaland are the penalty takers, and they decide between them.
Yeah, so back in the sort of Rashford, Martial type setup that Solskjaer used to advocate for.
Yeah, so that could be a factor.
Sure.
Penalties are huge. I think City get quite a few of them.
Look, Dan, there's a lot of green on the Kevin De Bruyne column here. He's an absolute fortune at 12.1 million. Obviously, his stats over the years have been incredible, breaching 200 points. Regular as clockwork over the seasons gone by. Maybe not featured quite as often as we've seen in the past, although clearly he's still got the most minutes of these boys. Do you think it's just too much money, bearing in mind, forgetting everything else, but do you think it's just too much money to invest when you've got competitors elsewhere, and Kevin De Bruyne should be avoided on that basis alone?
I think so. Yeah, you're right. I think it's the price. He's not just competing against the City mids, but it's competing against the likes of Salah, who's now returning plenty of points. Yeah. You look at Salah's season, it feels like Salah's had an underwhelming season, but he's still had he's still scored a lot of FPL points.
I totally agree. So, I was watching Match of the Day, and a girlfriend said Salah's had a bad season. I was like, I'm pretty sure he's around 25 goals for the campaign, but I got where she was coming from. It is a weird one in that respect. Yeah, but so it's just the price that puts you off KDB, you think?
I think so. I just can't fit him in. We've all got Haaland. Yeah. I think a lot of us are going to have Salah, although we'll see. And then, of course, we all want the likes of Trent now, who, for large parts of the season, we haven't had to fit Trent in.
No. I mean, they're still leaking goals, aren't they? They shipped 2 to Forest at home. Forest, I think, had scored 5 away from home prior to that game, so they're not exactly, clinical in that respect. But he's playing in this kind of more advanced role, isn't he? And just looking down, so they've got an away match in 33. This is Liverpool now. The double for them in 34 is a Tottenham home game and Fulham home game. So 2 home games. Nice. Tottenham have just shipped 6 and shipped 5, I think, in 21 minutes to Newcastle. So we're all at sea. Whether or not there's a manager change before that game, we'll see. But presumably, Dan, people are going to need Mo Salah in their teams ahead of 34. That's something that's just going to need to be factored in, which again makes De Bruyne harder to accommodate.
Yeah, my plans to the end of the season. I always look at the transfer planners, and I targeted De Bruyne in 37 possibly. Okay, because they have an extra double there, Man City, but Liverpool don't. So the Salah to De Bruyne could be on then.
Okay, right. Yeah, so sort of kick the can down the road in that respect. Yeah, okay.
Because game week 37 is after the second leg of the Champions League semi-final, so we'll know if they're in the final or not.
That's worth knowing, yeah. I'm sure your fingers crossed for them. Yeah, I bet. No, I'm only kidding. Okay, in terms of just broad brush strategy, though, for Man City, though, Dan, forgetting the who, do you think it's the recommendation here is 2 minimum, or would you be going, actually, you need 3? What do you kind of think? Obviously, Haaland, again, we take as read.
I think I'm only going to go Haaland and another max one of the midfielders, probably maybe Grealish, yeah. I think because we've still got the Brighton assets,
yeah,
and they're still great value.
Yeah, they are.
And of course, they've got a double game week as well, 2 double game weeks.
They do. So a reminder of the Brighton fixtures, guys. They're away to Forest, as we saw from Dan's 33 game. They've then got Wolves and Man United home fixtures in game week 34. Everton at home in 35, which is not a fixture anyone will be frightened of. Double game week in 36 and 37 of Arsenal and Newcastle, respectively, and then Southampton and Man City in 37. So those Brighton assets, you're not going to want to jettison them either, right? They've got to be part of the makeup.
Yeah. So yeah, it's going to be tricky. There's some decisions to be made, which is why I really would like to roll a transfer in game week 33.
Okay.
Have that extra bit of information. Going into 34 because the schedule for City is quite tough. It's of every 3 days for the next month, basically, to the end of the season. So that's where maybe Alvarez could come in. If we're downgrading Kane to fit in a Salah, maybe people could punt on Alvarez. It is a punt, though. I think City's plan with Haaland is to start him and take him off after they go
once the game's won. Yeah, it feels like that.
Maybe Alvarez will get a few halves here and there, and his stats look good, as you see.
What a player! What a prospect! What a player! Yeah, definitely. He's an exciting player for Man City fans and FPL managers alike. Look, would you say that sort of thinking, Dan, in terms of Alvarez and attacking options, you think it's better spent rather than taking the absolute lottery that somehow is still their defence, and say, the likes of Ederson, who people have talked about in terms of the security of minutes and what have you, but it's just been a nightmare, hasn't it, for managers in terms of them sloppily conceding and it being a 1 or a 2 point. And I was going to say more often than not, that's seemingly the case. Do you think it's just actually a tax where you go and you take the minute risk as a downside of that, but a necessary one?
I think so. Yeah, there's a lot of people who've gone for City defenders as well.
Yeah.
Ake, then he got injured. It's been really tough. My plans involved getting Ederson in.
Yeah.
But I might avoid him now. Not. I still think they'll keep some clean sheets, but more to keep a slot open, an extra slot open for 35, 36, 37 for another Man City attacker.
I like it. So that would be the advice to managers watching potentially as well. And sympathies if you joined me on the Ederson train a while ago, guys. It's been no fun whatsoever. But yeah, we'll see. Avoid that 75th minute like the plague, because it seems to be like that, and then they just kind of completely switch off when the game's good and won. Okay, let's say I don't like saying gun to the head. It's a bit dramatic, Dan. But if you were to sort of commit to a Man City strategy for the remaining game weeks, we looked at your team ahead of game week 33. Obviously, Jack Grealish is in there ahead of the Arsenal game. Do you think it's going to be Haaland and Grealish for you for the foreseeable, or are you going to somehow find a way to change that, bearing in mind that Salah's going to need to find his way into that team at some point as well? How are you going to personally accommodate Man City players down the stretch?
Yeah, so my plan was the Grealish spot was meant to be for Salah, but I really am tempted now to keep Grealish and find a different route to Salah, whether that's Bruno or Rashford. It's going to be a tough decision, but so that's why I want that extra week's information. But gun to my head, I'd probably. Oh, it's tough. It's tough, Tom.
Yeah, it's a difficult one. I'm asking you to make decisions before the information's available as well, so it's probably not worth that much. But
if it was today, I'd probably still take Grealish out for Salah.
Okay. Yeah, I mean, look, Mo didn't have his most effective game, did he, in the the Forest game seemed to be pretty wide from the highlights that I saw, but still notched his goal, took it impressively. And like you said, it's been a curious season. There's not something that we reflect on super favourably, but the returns have been there all year, really.
Yeah, it's going to be tough. I have looked at some no Salah routes, but he's an FPL favourite, Salah, isn't he?
He is. And like we said, those fixtures, those prolonged set of fixtures, not just from in the double, but even the 33 fixture against West Ham.
Brentford at home.
Yeah, they got Brentford. They got who else? They've got Brentford at home. They've got Leicester, Aston Villa, and Southampton. So an interesting an interesting run. It's hard to foretell how Liverpool do, isn't it? This season, there's been some incredible wins for them and some really insipid results as well. So it's going to be interesting to see. They are still, I guess. They do still harbour vague hopes, I guess, for qualifying for European competitions in the league, certainly. So it's not like it's a redundant set of fixtures for them coming down the final field.
Yeah, they're going to want to finish strongly, aren't they?
Of course.
Because they've got a challenge next season.
They do.
So a good season is needed for them.
All right, mate. Look, congrats on getting into the top 100k. I'm really hopeful that you and I get to catch up before the season's done to see whether or not that trend continues and whether or not you crack the top 50k. Dan, no chips left, but the team's set up super well, and it looks like you're going to be battering that 50k door down sometime soon. I think. So, are there any final thoughts that you wanted to cover?
No, thanks, Tom. Yeah, hopefully we do. Catch up again before the end of the season, but good luck everyone for the stretch.
Cool. Thanks very much for coming on, mate. And guys, do please get down into those comments and let Dan know how you think his team is shaping up ahead of Gameweek 33, and I'm sure he'll be fine to come back to you and reply to any questions that you ask as well. And do please also smash a like on the video on your way out and enjoy the rest of your week. We will be back next week for another video. So without further ado, guys, take care. Goodbye.